Hi everyone, I'm just going to give it a few moments for people to join. The numbers are gradually increasing, so I'll just stay quiet for 30 seconds or so until the numbers jump up to what we're expecting, and then we'll start the webinar. Okay, all right. Well, it's 1 minute past now, and we've got 30 odd people in there, so I think we'll make a start. So, welcome very much to the South Community Forum. Thank you for joining us this evening. The last of these South Community Forums was held on the 23rd of November, so it's been a number of months since we've held one. Just to introduce myself, my name's John Parrott. I'm from JFG Communications, and I'll be chairing this webinar this evening. The Community Forum will include presentations on 5 projects in the Greater Cambridge area. These are the Foxton Travel Hub, a new road classification for Cambridge, then Cambridge South East Transport 1, Cambridge South East Transport 2, and then we'll finish with the Greater Cambridge Greenways projects. So with those 5 presentations, and I'm sure there'll be sort of questions and comments posed because it is an interactive webinar. We do have quite a lot to get through in the sort of time allocated. But as I say, of course, there will be opportunities for questions, which will follow. We'll address questions following each respective presentation. If you have questions about other GCP projects, other than those 5 that I've just listed, and they're not on the agenda this evening, then please email us and we'll respond to them separately. Alistair, if you could just put in the chat the email address for that. Most people will probably know it. We'll just put it in the chat anyway if people want to contact us about things that are out of scope of this webinar this evening. In terms of housekeeping, I'm just going to sort of run through that so very quickly just before we sort of start. So it has been run in a webinar format. This means that you can't see each other, but we know that we know that you're there, because obviously there's a limit on sort of the screen. Most of us got used to using Zoom and Teams and everything over the last couple of years. Everyone's joining. Some people are at work, but most people are sort of joining from home or somewhere else. So please bear with us if there are internet outages, or indeed if people's pets or loved ones sort of interrupt in the background, which tends to happen from time to time. If you would like to ask a question, I say please wait until the end of the presentation that you want to ask it about and raise your virtual hand. So I'm sure people have used it, but it's the raise hand at the bottom of your screen, sort of in the middle there. If you push that, I will see a yellow hand and we'll come to you. I'll then ask my colleague to unmute you if I'm coming to your question, because I'll see who's asked it and you'll be able to say it. If you'd prefer not to speak and to ask it that way, you're welcome to type your question into the chat and I'll pick it out from there as well. So you can do both ways. And everyone has the opportunity to ask a question. So I will try as much as possible to go through them in the order that they were asked. Priority will be given to people who haven't asked a question. So if somebody who's already asked a question asks a second question, forgive me if I kind of go to other people before I come back to you for your supplementary question. If you post a statement or the rhetorical point in the chat that's not a question, rest assured that we will be picking it up and we'll be capturing. We've got a support team here and we've got the transcript, so we're capturing, and it's also being recorded. And that's the other point I was going to make. It is a public meeting, so we are recording this session. You should see that on your screen, but just to make everybody aware. Final sort of bit of housekeeping is just a plea to please be courteous, polite and courteous. Obviously, there's a lot of views on these projects, but if you could remain courteous to each other, and particularly to the officers that that are presenting this evening as well, because we don't tolerate sort of abusive sort of language, and people can be removed from this webinar if that occurs. But I'm hoping, I'm sure it won't. I'd like to now introduce the presenters for tonight, who, along with myself as chair, will be make up the panel for this evening. So first up, we'll have Thomas, who will be presenting on the Foxton Travel Hub. Then we have Mehmet on the new road classification for Cambridge. Third presentation will be on Cambridge South East Transport 1, and that will be given by Ollie, followed by Jane and Alex, who will be co-presenting on Cambridge South East Transport 2. And last but not least, we'll have Chris on the Greater Cambridge Greenways. This is the people that you can see here, as well as those panelists that I mentioned. That's been supported by colleagues from GCP who will be taking notes of your feedback, questions and statements. And also we've got tech support as well, just to be able to sort of unmute people and keep the Zoom show running as best as we can. So without further ado, I'll hand over to our first presenter. I will mute myself while he's speaking, and then I'll come back at the end of the presentation. So Thomas, the floor is yours.
Thanks very much, John. I'm just going to share my screen. If someone can just let me know when they can see it, that'd be really helpful.
Yes, Thomas, we can see your screen now.
Brilliant. It's asking me who I can share it with, but I'm going to put everyone, so hopefully everyone can see that. Do put in the chat if you cannot see it, just so I'm aware. So good evening everyone, my name is Thomas Fitzpatrick. I'm the Transport Programme Manager at the Greater Cambridge Partnership, and I'm joined this evening by Chris Payne, who is from Mott MacDonald, our consultant working on the scheme, to help me out with kind of any questions that come through. It's a relatively short update on the Foxton Travel Hub. Following the engagement that took place in September of last year, in December, the Executive Board agreed to an updated design of the Foxton Travel Hub and to submit a planning application for the scheme. The scheme is going to consist of 200 car park spaces, 100 cycle park spaces, toilet facilities, and a footbridge over the station. And kind of crucially, the reason kind of just to highlight this highlight the scheme this evening is that the planning application is due to be submitted in early July 2022. It is a significantly different scheme to what it was beforehand, and we've just put up the kind of overall plan for that scheme on the screen here. There isn't too much more to say at this point, so I think if it's okay, John, back to you and kind of any questions.
Thank you very much, Thomas. Thanks for that brief presentation. So over to you, the community, councillors, people in the audience. Please do raise your hands if you want a question. I'll just open that up. I can't see any hands anywhere, or type anything into the chat if you want to ask a question about the Foxton Travel Hub. We have one question. One hand raised. Just see who that is now.
Just going to stop sharing so that I can see, but if people do want me to put it back up, then please tell me.
Yeah, please do stop sharing. I'm just looking at the participants. There is a hand. I'm just trying to find whose hand that is. And if anyone else can...
Sarah Grove.
Sarah, sorry, there you are, Sarah. Alistair, if you could please unmute Sarah, thank you. Sarah, yes. Hi, Sarah, you're unmuted now.
Oh, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Sarah. Please
okay, so Sarah Grove, I'm from the Meldress, Shepperth and Foxton Community Rail Partnership.
Right.
I note that you said footbridge over the railway. We had seen a previous design where this footbridge had lifts either side, so I don't know whether that is still going ahead or not. That's my question.
Yes, my understanding is that we are still having lifts on both sides, Sarah.
Good. Okay, so that'll be fully accessible.
Yes,
crossing between the platforms.
Yes.
Okay, that was all I needed. Thank you very much.
Great. Thanks for your question, Sarah. Right. Okay. Now, Sarah's hand's gone down. There's another hand up here. Sorry, guys. So no other hands up that I'm seeing. Is that correct, team? Alistair, everyone? And there's no other questions in the chats. So, there is a hand up now. There we go, and that's Stella. Alistair, if you could unmute Stella Weeds, please. Stella, you unmute. So sorry, Stella, your hand's gone down now. If you want to, Alistair, I think Stella's still on mute.
I have given you permission to talk, Stella. You'll need to unmute yourself on your end.
I see, yeah.
There
No,
you go.
I think
Can
I
hear.
pressed something by mistake because I wasn't intending to.
Okay, no problem. Okay, not a problem. Thanks, Stella. Okay, if there's no more questions then, and we do have quite a lot to get through tonight. So if people think of questions on Foxton, Thomas is going to be staying around for the duration. So please pop them in the chats. So we'll move on. If that's okay. So then next up, we've got Mem. Mem is going to be presenting on the new road classification for Cambridge. And again, I will mute myself and give the floor to you, Mem.
Thank you. Let me just share my screen. Can everybody see that?
Yes, we can see your screen. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So, hi everyone. Thanks for the introduction, John. So yes, I'm Mehmet Ahmet. I work for WSP as an associate director, and I'm assisting the Greater Cambridge Partnership on this project. And I'd like to introduce also, I guess, co-presenter as well, Nav Panesar, who's also assisting with the project. And in the background, we also have Richard Preston, who can't be with us this evening, who's also working on the actual review of the road classification network. So I guess just to start with, I guess the review of the road network user hierarchies is about the way in which people and vehicles move around the city. It considers how roads and streets are classified, based on their type of vehicles and traffic that are used by in the future. Some roads act as the main routes in and out of the city, and therefore carry high levels of all types of traffic, from lorries, cars and buses to cyclists and pedestrians. Other more of those minor roads act as routes that provide access to particular areas of the city. They carry less traffic and are used more by cars, cyclists, and pedestrians. Some streets in the city centre have restricted access for motor vehicles to better cater for higher levels of walking and cycling. There are different types of roads and have different uses, so are categorised differently. So I guess why are we looking at this review now? I guess the last review was done in the early 1980s, and obviously there's been quite a considerable change, not just within Cambridge, but also within I guess in terms of some of the national policy that's coming forward. I guess we've got some examples there in terms of just some of the, I guess, some of the key documents, gear change being a major one, that was published during the pandemic. There's all the work going on with the quality of life objectives, air quality being a major part as well. Bus Mac better. There's a real sea change in terms of how people are seeing how the network should be used. So, I guess, this is, I guess, the right time to start considering those changes to better reflect the change in priorities. So in terms of the key aims of the review, there's a set of points here in front of you that I guess sets some of the key parts of some of the things that we're considering. So supporting an improved quality of life, help meet the challenges of the climate change and the agenda around that, improving health and well-being by providing a better environment for physical activity, again harking back to improving air quality by reducing congestion and encouraging active travel and use of public transport. I guess that, creating that sense of place within the city as well. These are, again, this will allow us to think differently about how that place is used, and also improve access to work, education, leisure, and green spaces within the city. I guess how the actual networks actually looks at the moment. This shows the current A and B road classifications. So I guess in terms of the ambition that we're trying to achieve here, is that trips by cars, vans and lorries would be required to use main roads for as much of their journeys as possible to reduce traffic on the local roads and streets. This would mean that some local streets, which are currently used through routes between main roads or used as wrap runs to avoid delays on busy routes and peak times, would no longer be open to through traffic. Access to these local roads and streets would be made from closest main road junction to reach their destination. As a result, potentially journeys by private motor vehicles might be less direct and more inconvenient. It will still be possible to drive around the city and access all streets, but it might just take a little bit longer for you to get to your destination. This means that in future, some busy streets would carry less traffic, with reduced levels of noise, congestion, and that those local roads and streets are close to those through trips. We'll use, as always, we'll obviously look at some of the work that we're doing. We'll look at some of the traffic modelling to obviously try and understand the actual impact of some of the potential displacement of traffic. And then we'll look at potentially some of those sorts of point closures and stuff in terms of some of the movements and trying to restrict some of those movements. So these are the outcomes. I think I've touched on the traffic modelling part already. And I've touched on the whole point around the journeys by private car. And in terms of how the local streets should be carrying less traffic, and how cyclists and scheduled buses would be allowed through those point closures, I guess, to make those trips more reliable, pleasant and convenient as possible. So this is the principle that's set out at a relatively high level at this stage. These are just some of the ideas that have come forward that we're currently consulting on as we speak. And we've broken them down into various categories of roads and streets. And this is based on the level of access and movement they provide within the wider road network. So hopefully you can see the different colours between the primary, secondary, area access streets, local access street, civic streets and city boundaries. So for each of the categories, there's a description for each of the categories. And this just sets out just some of the characteristics that we've identified at this stage. But clearly, as we're in consultation period, feedback would be quite key. So you can see in terms of primary distributor roads, we'll be looking at those as the main roads that all traffic could use. The secondary distributor roads, those are the smaller roads that all traffic could use and get to the city. You've got the area access streets, roads that would link the main roads to the C roads and to the city. And then you've got local access streets. Those are roads that would link the main roads to the smaller roads in the city. And then you've got the civic streets, mainly small streets in the city centre. Access vehicles would be restricted. So I guess I touched on some of the key issues that we are currently considering. And again, feedback on some of these items will be a key part in some of the sort of makeup of the network that we look at. So traffic displacement, I mentioned that already. We envisage there will be traffic displacement, and we'll need to look at the impacts on some of the other parts of the network where the cars are displaced. We'll be looking at city centre bus routing, and also we'll be looking at how the making connections work and some of the bus enhancements are looking at in terms of how that routing should be considered part of the network. Also be looking at pedestrian cycling priority where we can. Again, looking across the wider Greater Cambridge Partnership schemes and trying to connect to those. Access for taxis, again, some people use them as a form of transport. We need to consider how they will access the city. The deliveries as well to the city centre is another key part that we'll need to consider. And any design that we look at as well, we'll need to consider the sort of road safety implications and also the vehicle and user exemptions as well. So we've come up with some initial ideas, and hopefully many of you will have seen the brochures and some of the material that's out there. This is what we're asking for feedback for, some initial ideas on the level of access allowed for particular types of vehicles. And we've got each mode set out in terms of how they would access the network, but also, I guess, some of the sort of high level detail as well of how they will access that network and the types of restrictions for each of those. And as I say, we've gone down through each of the modes and we've considered, hopefully, covered all the modes that we've considered: cars, commercial vehicles, emergency service vehicles, and also blue badge holders as well. So I'm hoping, I guess we're hoping that, you've seen that the consultation period has started. It's going to close on the 18th of July, midday. We've got lots of other public meetings as well coming up. We've got one on the 15th and 29th. So, there's going to be continuous engagement through this process. The more feedback we get, the better we can reflect some of the comments that are going to come through the actual review. So I think that's me. So I hope you found that informative. Obviously open to questions. Myself and Nav are here. Hopefully we can answer them. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mehmet. That's for your presentation there. You'll be pleased to know we've already got a couple of questions in the chat. So I'm going to read them out and I'll let yourself and Nav decide who want to answer them. So the first one is from Sue Metcalf, who's asking, sorry, now it's my chat's just disappeared. I'll bring it back up just a second. So sorry, Sue was asking on ambition, why not aim to build a new purpose ring road at the city boundary, so preserving the city and backs, less disruption, simpler and safer construction?
Would you like to take that one, Nav?
Yeah, personally, it's something that would be very much, considering Cambridge is kind of surrounded by the A14, the M11 quite closely, as well as sort of local villages. I'm not 100% sure how possible that would be to build, but you would still have kind of issues with people as they're moving around Cambridge. They would still be using sort of local routes as through routes. The issues would still, even if you had an outer ring road or a completely new infrastructure for a ring road, it wouldn't alleviate the problems that Cambridge is still currently facing, because you would still have mass amount of people sort of moving into the city and making their way around it, regardless, without any other changes, like, for example, point modal filters.
Okay, thank you, Nav, and Sue, I hope that answers your question. The next one that's come up in the chat is from Jim Chisholm, and he's asking, will you use provisions within Part 6 of the Traffic Management Acts 2004, which just came into force last week, Jim's saying, to better control modal filters such that white lists can be used to enable access for priority traffic, including provision for disabled and care workers, as is currently done in some areas of London. Are you able to answer that, Memo Nav?
Yeah, we definitely are going to be using Part 6 and be looking at all available options that are available to us to deliver the project. At the moment, we're still in a very sort of, it's a very broad overview on this consultation, so we're sort of exact details of certain closures are not set in stone at the moment, and we sort of envisage this project to take sort of a good number of years before we're looking at sort of implementation and sort of looking at putting any modal filters in or any traffic changes. And it'll also build into other schemes, like, for example, the revised bus network, residence parking, amongst others.
Right. Okay. Thank you. And the next question. So sometimes we do slip into, particularly traffic engineers such as yourself, into technical speak. I do know what a modal filter is myself, but I'm not going to attempt to explain it. So I'll let you two decide. If you could please explain, just so that we're absolutely clear what a modal filter is, please.
Yep, I'm happy to take that one now.
Yeah, I'll leave you that one.
Yeah, thank you. So it's sometimes referred to as point closures. So it's, in terms of the road design, it restricts the passage of certain types of vehicles. It does so, you'd sometimes see modal filters on low traffic neighborhoods where they're obviously trying to manage, the use of motor traffic. And that's essentially, I guess, in a nutshell, what a modal filter is.
Great, thank you very much, Mehmet. Now, Sam Davis, you have your hand up. So just in terms of process, Alistair, if you enable Sam to unmute, and then Sam, if you unmute yourself, then you can ask your question. Please fire away, Sam. It looks like you're muted.
Hello. So I'm City Councillor for the Queen Edith's ward in the south of the city, and under your classification, Queen Edith would retain quite a lot of primary access routes. Is that what you call them?
Distributor roads, yeah.
Distributor roads. So I'm interested in the comment you had on one of the slides about some main roads would see an increase. Are you going to share the modelling so that we can see what type of increase you are thinking might be applied to these primary roads? Because I think that's pretty critical for my residents in understanding how this will work for them. I understand that, one might hope for a reduction further in, but in the outlying suburbs, I think that's a pretty key concern.
Certainly, yeah. As we've sort of touched on before, this is something that's going to be sort of delivered in stages. It's not something that's going to be, it's not going to be like, congestion charging in London, for example, where, as of day one, it's all implemented throughout the city. We'd be looking at staggering a lot of the implementation so you don't just see the network completely fall apart. It's worth mentioning, on day one. But you would also be looking at this as a process is very much a first draft. So based on feedback from the consultation, that will help us shape what would sort of a more finalized kind of view of what the road network classification could look like. We would also be looking at sort of implementing measures in stages as well. So you wouldn't be looking at sort of exact areas where you would have absolute pandemonium and then you'd have sort of other areas that are quieter. We'd be looking at sort of implementing everything in stages. So it wouldn't just cause mayhem, should I say. And when you're looking at other schemes like that will ease kind of how congestion on the network works. So, for example, things like residence parking, better bus travel, and a better bus network in the city. Hopefully, that will alleviate some of the existing congestion problems that Cambridge faces as well.
Right. Thanks, Nav. Hopefully, Sam, that answers your question. Sam, I see you sort of put your hand up again. If this is a supplementary question on that, I'll let you come back in, or if it's a separate question, is it Sam? Was it related to what Nav just responded to?
Yes. Am I? Yes. Okay.
Yeah. Please continue.
Yes, it is very much related. It's a very simple question. I appreciate what you say about the staggered introduction and how there will be a kind of crossover point where other measures will hopefully take up more of the slack. It's just, are you able to share the modelling that you have done, which will get you to this point in any form that might be?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm really sorry. Yeah, we would be looking at sharing any modelling that we do. Appreciative that it's going to be something that's going to be citywide, so there is going to be an awful lot of modelling that will have to take place. But we will be as transparent with sharing how the modelling and sort of outcomes will what they are.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you, Nav. Comms team, if you could just note Councillor Davis's request there and Nav's response, that would be appreciated. I'm just, Linda, you posed a statement in the chat. We've picked that up. Thank you very much for that in terms of feedback. I'm not taking it as a question, but thank you very much for that. And we've noted that in terms of the feedback from this session. I'm going to come next to David Plank, who's raised his hand. If you could please unmute David, and then Annabelle, I'll come to your question in the chat. So David, please, you're unmuted. We should be able to hear you now.
Thank you. I have two questions. The first concerns the private road network within the Cambridge Biomedical Campus, and in particular, the proposed application of the new road classification, which, by the way, the Trumpington Residents Association very much welcomes. The proposed application that these should be area access streets. Now, we don't understand that because these roads are no through roads. They're purely, as I say, private roads to serve the campus, and through traffic is not allowed. There is a great deal of abuse of that, which is a matter we're have been taking up for many years directly with the campus authorities. But it seems inappropriate for them to be designated as area access streets. The second question relates to Cambridge Station and CB1. While we understand that there would be an area access street in terms of Hills Road, the roads to the station and for CB1 are to be designated as purely as neighbourhood roads, whereas it seems to us that some of them do at least serve a local access purpose, for example, Station Road, and to an extent, part of Tennyson Road and directly to Station Square. So I'd be grateful for an explanation of why that proposal is made.
Yeah, so these are more sort of generalized comments that really this is a first draft, and this isn't something that is absolutely set in stone, and based on our responses from the consultation, it will help us kind of be able to shape what the network looks like, especially to, like yourselves, the resident associations who have some specific knowledge to the areas. But we have at the moment sort of area access streets are defined as roads that would link, or broadly defined, the roads that would link the main roads to C roads in the city. With Station Road, with Hills Road linking to areas like Station Road, for example, Station Road doesn't really have a designation at this moment in time. So that would be something that your comments would be welcomed upon. And also kind of note your point about the biomedical campus and issues with access on that one. But I'd definitely sort of welcome if you would be able to send a formal kind of a formal note of your views from the Residents Association to the email that Alistair sort of posted earlier on. We'd very much welcome it.
Realise I'm muted. Thank you, David. Thank you, Nav. Yeah, if you're able to do that, David, as I say, get a bit more of a response than the time that we're allowed tonight. So thank you.
We will certainly be doing that. Thank you.
Thank you, David. The next question I'm going to come to is from Annabelle Skies, and the question is, what determined your boundary? Why, for example, have you not looked at the roads through Grantchester, the A1301 through Great Shelford, Graham's Road and Hinton Way and Lime Kiln Lane? If you're able to pick that up, you can probably see the question.
Yeah, comments.
Yeah, so at the moment, we are looking at mainly roads within the city boundary. That's not to say that at this, you know, in the future, those areas wouldn't be ones that we would look at and look to expand the area. But at the moment, it's looking at sort of mainly Cambridge and the arterial routes into the city. But like I say, I'll reiterate, in the future, it could well be that once we say have something more sort of solid to go within the city, that there's nothing that would necessarily rule out us potentially going into the greater Cambridge area.
Great. Okay. Thanks, Nav. Next question. Well, so there's a comment there from Rachel. Thank you for that, Rachel Northfield, that the biomedical campus will be responding to this consultation. Yeah, thank you, and that's good to know. So, Constantine, please pick that up to expect that. Nicola and Marion, what effect would part of Hills Road becoming an AAS have on the maintenance budget? Are you able to answer that, Matt?
Yeah. Would you like me to answer that, Nav?
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, I guess we're working across a lot of the organisations within county, a lot of the teams as part of this process. Obviously, you know, we will be talking to those teams to try and have a real understanding of what that would actually do in terms of impact to the budget. So, you know, a lot of that thinking does need to come through as part of this consultation. So it is reaching out to various teams. It is so hopefully, you know, through this review, we'll be able to have a not a detailed view at this stage, but, you know, I guess we'll take a view in terms of what the impacts would be.
Great, thanks, thanks, ma'am. Right, at the moment, there's no more hands up, and we do, and nothing else in the chat, and we still have 3 presentations to get to. So I'm going to move on to the next presentation, if that's okay. If there are questions that come to light on road classification that after we've moved on, then please use that email address that's in the chat at the beginning and send them in. So next we've got Ollie on Cset Part 1. Ollie, if you are ready, yes, you just put your camera on. I will mute myself and we can see your presentation and hand the floor over to you, Ollie.
Great, thanks very much. I'll just make that full screen. Right, can everyone see that okay?
Yes, we can see it.
Lovely. Good evening all. My name is Ollie Daffon. I work for Mott McDonald and work for GCP as the design lead on Cambridge South East Transport Phase 1. Apologies from Martin Meehan, who works for Greater Cambridge Partnership as the project manager. Unfortunately, he was unable to attend the meeting this evening. So a quick reminder in terms of the Phase 1 extents, comprises 18 schemes along the 1307 and a programme of works that have been underway on site since 2020. And really the main purpose of this evening is to provide an update of the schemes that have not yet been constructed and the timeframe for delivery of the remaining schemes. So starting at the northern end of the 1307, the current status, the Linton Greenway, the active travel route from Addenbrooke's roundabout is split up into several sections. So the most northerly section has been completed between Addenbrooke's roundabout and down to Granham's Road. And the remaining parts of that scheme between Granham's Road and Bayman Road Park and Ride site is due to be on site later this year. We're doing final coordination with other local utility works and road space that are planned to make sure that they all happen at the same time and in a coordinated manner. And as I say, targeted construction period during autumn this year. Moving on further down, the Bayman Road Park and Ride was also proposed to be extended by approximately 150 spaces, and it's currently going through planning, following a planning application last year. If successful in achieving planning during the summer 2022, then we're targeting construction during autumn 2022 as well. Continuing further down, the next section of the Linton Greenway between Hinton Way roundabout and Bayman Research Campus roundabout. The upgrade to the Park and Ride Junction signals has been completed, along with the improved link between the Park and Ride and Hinton Way roundabout. And the remaining steps for this section of the scheme is to install LED studs and improve marking and vegetation clearance along the complete length of this section between Hinton Way and the Bayman Research Campus roundabout, and anticipating to undertake those works during summer 2022. Within that section is an individual scheme itself at the Haverhill Road junction with the 1307. And that scheme, the principles of it have been presented at previous LLS, but in summary, essentially the scheme looks to realign the Haverhill Road junction to address an existing accident cluster site at the junction between Haverhill Road and the farm shop access. It also looks to extend and address some speed matters on the 1307 by reducing the 1307 to one lane in each direction with a reduced speed limit on the approach to the revised junction. So we're currently finalising material to submit for a planning application in summer 2022 and target to be on site during 2023, subject to receiving planning approval. The next scheme further along the 1307 is just the other side of the 1307 on the Linton Greenway between Newmarket Road and the Pampersford Road Signal Junction. This is one of the later sections of the Greenway to be for the design to be developed on, and we recently held an engagement session with the Abingtons in regards to preferred route for the Greenway through the villages. It's fair to say that the feedback from that session that the option C, shown on screen, going via Pampersford Road rather than through the villages, was the strongly preferred route. So our current next steps for this section of the Greenway is to undertake a feasibility review to route the Greenway along Pampersford Road via option route C, including an outline costing to inform a potential business case for routing the Greenway along that section. In parallel with that work, we intend to complete the design of the path tie-in for the Greenway in two sections either side of the Pampersford Road signal junction here. So one side to tie in down to the existing Linton Road junction with the 1307, and on the other side to tie in from Pampersford Road signal junction up to the Dalehead Foods entrance, where it ties into the Linton Greenway works that have already been completed last year. And the intent is to undertake the tie-ins, those two sections of tie-ins during autumn 2022. Quick mention of the Hildestrum Signalized Junction. For those of you who know the area, maybe will be aware that it's been on site for the last couple of months and currently progressing well with completion due in summer 2022. So the next steps in this section is to complete the construction and undertake the post-completion road safety audit processes. Then the final section of the Linton Greenway, two key elements of this. Firstly, the section that ties in outside the Linton Village College Junction. We're proposing some upgrades to the signal junction there, improved crossing points and wider refuge island in the centre for that, as well as routing down to link up to the Linton Meadow to bring the path into Linton. The section as it passes past the school is currently under review, following some feedback from converting the existing public right-of-way along that section. And then as a result, we're undertaking some further engagement with the school to understand potential options to continue that link through. So next steps is to complete the 2 construction elements of the scheme outside the Linton Village College Junction and path link-ups on this section during the summer holidays, and also undertake some resurfacing of the path on the Linton Meadow on the other side. And the next scheme is at the Bartlow Road Junction, the existing staggered crossroads. The scheme is currently awaiting tender returns back from the contractor, which are due this month, and also undertaking final temporary land agreements and get those in place ready to start. Subject to both of the above being approved, then the target is to be on site during autumn 2022 with completion by the end of 2023. The works also include some modifications to the Dean Road crossroads further to the south of the Bartlow Road Junction, where the right turn ban out of Dean Road south arm is proposed, but those will be done at the same time as the roundabout construction, and therefore follow a similar time frame for completion. And that remains is the end of the presentation. Happy to field any questions.
Great, thank you very much, Ollie. There's nothing in the chat, but Councillor Batchelor has raised his hand. So if you could just unmute Councillor Batchelor, please, Alistair. Right, you're off mute now. Please go. Please fire away.
Yeah, thanks very much. Just going back to the Greenway at Abingdon and looking at the option C again. Have we got any sort of timetable ideas at the moment? Presumably, if you've got to go through the whole business of a business case to get it funded and so on, we're looking at some considerable time. Perhaps you have some indication of that. Whilst I'm on, I could just say thank you to the team who have actually listened to the local people and reacted. I mean, we're all quick to criticize about not being listened to and so on, but I think this is an example, a good example where we have been listened to and the feasibility is going to be worked up. So thanks for that.
Thank you very much, Councillor, for that positive feedback. It's always good to hear that.
Just in terms of the time frame, it's certainly looking to undertake the feasibility within the coming months for that section. As for the final approvals of where it goes after that, I probably couldn't say at this stage unless Thomas Fitzpatrick is able to give any indication on that, but I suspect it's probably a subject for the next update.
Thomas, is there anything you can say on that or not?
Yeah, I was going to say kind of similar to Ollie. I think the feasibility study, we're getting underway with that at the moment. That's going to take a couple of months, and there's a number of different aspects that we're going to have to look into for that. And then obviously from there we'll need to start preparing kind of the next set of kind of decisions and things around it. So I think it will be a much more thorough update at the next session.
Great, thank you very much. So moving on to the next question then, I'm going to come to, because they're coming in the chat and with hands up, so I'll come to Kate Kell next. If you could unmute Kate, please, Alistair.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you, Kate, yes.
Thank you very much. I'd like to reiterate actually what Councillor Batchelor said about thanks from Linton for listening to our concerns with original plans that have been put forward. My question relates to the Bartlow Road roundabout. So we have recently received the TTRO for that area. And the concern that we would have is that obviously at the moment we have a development going on the Bartlow Road. And we have an outstanding conservation area, which basically is the high street and would form essentially what would be a diversion route. I was slightly unnerved to see a response from Highways to say there's no official diversion route being proposed for that work, and that essentially people will either use Horseheath Road or the High Street. And Horseheath Road is perfectly acceptable. It doesn't have a weight limit and it doesn't pass through the outstanding conservation area. My concern and my question is, can anything be done from your side to prevent traffic, particularly construction traffic, heavy construction traffic, entering the village through the High Street to access the Bartlow Road site, please?
It's certainly something we can raise with the contractor. I'm not familiar with the full details of the TTRO who submitted, but I've made a note of that and certainly can come back to you separately on that, Kate.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And comms team, just as a backup, not that I don't trust our lead, but just take that for feedback to Kate, Cal, please. The next question, I have picked up the two in the chat from Sheila and Jim, but I'm just going to come to James Snell next, who had his hand up, and then I'll come to you, Sheila and Jim, your questions there. So James, I think you're able to unmute yourself. Yeah, we can hear you now, James. Please ask your question.
Hello. Thank you very much for taking this call. Basically, I'm an Abington resident, and I attended the meeting, which was obviously very fully attended at the Abington Institute a few weeks ago. And again, thank you to listening, because it sounds as if some consideration is being given to the actual route through the Abingtons. Rather than debate the pluses and minuses of the actual routes, which seems to be underhand, going through, as it were, the fingers and the breathers of this, I actually would like to just make the comment about, once you've got past and through Abington, we've got a very major hub the other side of the A11. How are and where are the options for getting all these potential Greenway walkers and cyclists over the A11? Because that should be the primary focus, in my view, and then to work out the best way of getting them to one side of the A11 our side, the Abington side of the A11 is the most important thing after that. But at the moment, the inadequate footbridge, which takes us over the A11, is very difficult for anybody with a bicycle, particularly if it contains any luggage, to push up and get down, and even more so if you're on an electric bike. It's dangerous, actually, quite frankly, and there's a very narrow path across the field to lead to it. I really feel that the focus for the Cambridge Partnership should be to establish and be very open about the various routes for those cyclists and walkers to get to that hub. Because until we do that, there is absolutely no point in discussing whether a Bournebridge Road is closed or not, whether Route A indeed is preferable over Route C or the other way around. That's really my main point.
Great, thank you, James. And that to me was part sort of feedback statement and a bit of a question in there. Thomas, I see you've come off, put your camera on, so I'll bring you in here.
Yeah, just to reassure you, James, so we have commissioned Atkins to start looking at options for the bridge and start building up a strategic outline business case. We've also opened discussions with National Highways to talk about, potential options for funding towards that. So it is very much high up on our priority list, and kind of agree with the statements that you make about the hub through to Grange Park and kind of the Abingdons, and it is very much on the agenda at the moment, and we are actively we've got work commissioned looking into it.
Good. I mean, I think it just one final thing to bear in mind. Bayman Institute seem to have been very good and opened up their park and their institute to the village or to people parking through, walkers and cyclists, from the point we're talking about, i.e. essentially the A11. You've got to get obviously into Bayman and then on. And it seems to me that Granta Park has and was promised to be a park for the people of Abington, particularly when the permissions were all granted. And whilst you're considering Route C, which is the Pampisford Road option, which I can support as well, I would have thought that pressure upon Granta Park should be made, because it is meant to be somewhere where we can all enjoy. The Abingtonians have absolutely nowhere to walk and cycle without being surrounded by roads and now the park, which has been given more permission to expand. So I would be for one, and I know many others would be too, to support the route that would take the cyclists through a very, very pleasant park, which should not be exclusive just to the businesses that surround it.
So just so that feedback also came back to me through Martin, Mihan, James, and it's something that we are looking to explore as part of this work, looking into the feasibility of Pampersford Road, but also looking at that as another option.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas, and thank you for your questions and your feedback, James. Much appreciated. We need to move on. It's coming up to 7 o'clock, but I'm just going to take these two final questions on this presentation. Again, if people have other questions, then please do send them in via the standard email address following the meeting. So the next one is from Sheila Bolden, and the question is, when do we expect the outcome of the feasibility study regarding Pampersford Road?
We've already answered that one, John. That was asked verbally, so we've answered it.
So you have, yeah. So apologies. And then Jim Chisholm. Then, so this is the last one in this section. Has anyone on the teams tried to ride the proposed cycle route adjacent to the A1307 in the dark on a winter evening against the motor flow, or tried to ride with a family group? So it sounds like it's a safety question that Jim's raising here, but I don't know if Thomas or Ollie, if you're able to sort of talk to that in terms of sort of engineering or any other interventions to address what Jim's implying there.
Firstly, I have cycled it myself when I was caught late at the meeting, and it ended up coming back in the dark, unfortunately. But fortunately, I had lights. So yes, and I suspect that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but one of your concerns you're probably highlighting is the proximity of car headlights near to the cycle traffic. Is that the case?
It's a written question. I mean, I believe it is.
Essentially, there's so the route itself, we're not formally lighting the cycleway along the full section, but where there is lighting proposed, obviously that provides that increased benefit. And where lighting isn't provided specifically for the cycle, that's where the LED studs come in and to be installed either side of the path, just inset in to minimise the risk of them being covered over by encroaching vegetation. And the idea that helps to guide cyclists in terms of drawing their eye away from oncoming headlight glare, so they can clearly see the path alignment ahead of them in hours of darkness.
Great. Okay, thank you, Ollie. And Jim has confirmed that I did indeed interpret what he was implying there correctly. So thank you, Jim, for your question. Thanks for that answer, Ollie. So it's just at 7 o'clock now. I'm going to move on from this topic, and I'm going to invite the next presenters, who are Jane and Alex, to provide their presentation on Cset 2, please. Over to you.
Just checking everyone can see that. Is that okay?
I'm not seeing a screen share at the moment.
Hello everyone.
Are you not seeing anything at the moment?
I'm not. I don't know if anyone else is, but no, we're not.
No.
Okay, hold on, wait 1 second.
Yeah, we are now, Alex.
Okay,
you can see it now. So I'll mute myself and hand the floor to you.
Yeah, Alex. I'm project manager for Cset Phase 2. We were meant to submit the Transport and Works Act earlier this year, but an appeal was allowed by the planning inspector sometime in December, I think the 29th of December, actually. An appeal was allowed by the planning for a written village.
Jane, sorry, can I just interrupt you? Your audio is a bit bad. Can I suggest maybe just switch your camera off, just lower the bandwidth, because you're breaking up a little bit. That's better.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is it better now?
Yeah, we can hear you a bit clearer now. Thank you.
Okay. So I was just saying that an appeal by Access Land Partnership was allowed by the planning inspector in December. This has an impact on the scheme, which, so my colleague, I've got Atkins, Alex, and Daniel. Alex is leading on the design side, and Daniel is leading on the environment side. So Alex will be taking us through options, which we have developed, having worked with the new owners of the area.
Okay. you want me to take it from here, Jane?
Alex, over to you. Yes.
Okay, so I'm Alex Hayes. I'm senior engineer for Atkins, working on the Cset's Phase 2 scheme. Tonight, we're just here to give you an update specifically around the Stapleford Retirement Village, as Jane's just explained, and the changes required to the current scheme. As Jane has just reiterated, planning permission was granted for the retirement village northeast of Stapleford under appeal from the Planning Inspectorate. The development has a direct impact on the preferred alignment for Cset's Phase 2.
Alex, sorry, I'm just going to interrupt. Apologies for interrupting again, but we're not seeing your full screen. We're just seeing the display and your notes on the slide. Are you able to just make your PowerPoint as a full? Because I think people will be struggling to see it.
I'm sorry, I didn't appreciate. I think I maybe might be sharing the wrong screen. Hold on, if I go back, if I new share screen 2.
That's it. Yeah, and if you just
is that better?
That's better. That's better.
Fine.
Yeah,
sorry.
Please go ahead. No, it's okay.
I'd obviously put the wrong screen. So the development had a direct impact on the preferred alignment for Cset's Phase 2. This is illustrated on the map, which shows the preferred route alignment there being dissected by what is the development master plan for the scheme. Part of the application, within the developer's application, they had set aside land for Cset's Phase 2, but as you can see, it's not on the preferred alignment for the route. In order for us to avoid the development, we need to deviate the route by approximately 120 meters. If we go to the next slide. So we have constraints for the option development around this proposed retirement village. The location of the stop, as indicated by the yellow star, is where the bus will physically have to stop. This limits the design speed of the bus in this area. We can't design a high-speed deviation in route around the retirement village because of the presence of the stop itself. And also we have a signalized crossing of Havehill Road, which we need to limit to 30 miles an hour for safety reasons. So in effect, we're left with the development of 20 miles an hour and 30 miles an hour geometry around the retirement village. However, in early development of options, the 20 mile an hour options are a more sinuous route. They are longer. They also require extra over deceleration from what would be the normal approach to the bus stop, which results in impacts to the journey time for the scheme. We also gained early feedback from our operational safety team, which highlighted a risk with inconsistent speeds for the route. There would be no other section of 20 mile an hour on the offline busway, and it was felt there could be a compliance issue, which could in effect lead to a source of future accidents for the scheme. And for those reasons, we've been looking only at 30 mile an hour options to be developed. So we have option 1. This uses the route, the route bearing within the current country park, and it extends this towards the retirement village, and then presently slightly cuts the corner of the retirement village layout where it crosses Haverhill Road, and then attempts to get back onto the current alignment as soon as possible. It should be noted that the bus stop can only be positioned on the section of straight road, so that the bus can align itself with the stop correctly. And in this scenario, it limits the location of the bus stop and the associated infrastructure to this triangular wedge between Haverhill Road and the public transportation route. Option 2, this, sorry, my pointer's gone a bit crazy. This hugs the boundary of the development and uses a large radius curve to stick relatively close to the retirement village boundary. It doesn't then take the corner off the retirement village. The downside of that is that it takes longer for the route alignment to get back onto the original alignment. And again, it suffers the same constraint that the bus stop itself can only be positioned on the straight section between the two reverse curves. So therefore, the bus stop in this particular option is effectively slightly divorced from Haverhill Road. And just to give, because sometimes it's not exactly easy to see with those style of plans, just to give an overview of the two options. So you can see that the cyan option, the light bluish option is option 1, which effectively kind of hugs itself reasonably close to Haverhill Road. It's located there. And option 2, the magenta, purplish, pinky kind of line, borders the retirement village, but then has further downstream impacts with a slightly detached bus infrastructure stop. Both of these proposals have increased walking distances over the original baseline condition for some users. Option 1 being approximately 84 meters further away, and option 2 being around 74 meters. It depends on where you kind of measure from exactly as to what dimensions you get, but it's within those kind of regions. And I think where we're going next is that we're going to further develop these options, which is kind of what you see on the screen here. We're continuing to work with the affected landowners, and also that subject to board approval, that there will be consultation material prepared on these two options, which will then open the floor to the public for feedback around which option that they may prefer or not prefer. And that's where we are for the time being. If I stop sharing, and then we'll
thank you, Alex. The intention is to go out to consult in July, subject to approval by the exec board, and we will go back to the exec board before the end of the year to present the results of the consultation. We're now looking at the Transport and Works Act submission early next year, and of course a public inquiry before the end of next year.
Great, thank you, Jane. Thank you, Alex. I'm assuming that's the conclusion of the presentation. It is that's very helpful. Thank you. No hands up at the moment. Just double checking now, but we've got some questions in the chat. So I'm going to come to David Plank first. The report to the Joint Assembly anticipates a limited public consultation on the alignment, on the amended route alignments, the Stapleford Retirement Village. When is that likely to take place? Oh, sorry, you've already answered that. This is scheduled to commence in July, so we've got the answer to that. Thank you. And then, but what doesn't appear to be answered is, David, then you've come back and said also, when will the anticipated next meeting of the Cset local liaison group take place? Are we able to answer that? Anybody?
In terms of the LLF meeting, we haven't planned one in yet. But with regards to parish council meetings, we have reached out to various parish councils, and we'll be attending a couple that's been booked in for July. I think the 12th and the 14th of July, we've scheduled a couple in.
Okay.
Parish council meetings, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Jane. Right, I'll just put out a call for last chance on this. We've still got one presentation to go, but I'm seeing no hands up and no more questions or comments in the chat. So that's fine if that is the case. Going once. So no more. Oh, sorry. Here we go. Jeff Hale. If you can unmute Jeff Hale, please, Alistair. Right, Jeff. I think you just need to. Yeah, Jeff, you should be on mic now. Please ask your question.
Thank you, John. Can everyone hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you, Jeff. Yeah.
I'm just speaking on behalf of the Magog Trust, who have been asked by Rangewood Villages to manage the countryside park for them. I was just interested to know, it wasn't clear from the drawings how far into the countryside park either of the options would go, because obviously minor movement wouldn't be a problem. If it went in a long way, we'd end up with bits of land that were difficult to use and to run footpaths across.
Right. Thank you for your question, Jeff. Jane or Alex, are you able to answer Jeff's question there?
Yeah, so option 2 very much runs upon the line that was given, right by Rangeford to us to work with. So that effectively would run and follow the boundary of the country park. Option 1, where we're attempting to effectively minimise the deviation of route, does encroach slightly into the park. I don't have an exact measurement, but I would say it's in the realms of 20, 25 metres off the top of my head, as a slight encroachment that comes in and then cuts back. I think that's probably about a worst case dimension.
Okay, thank you. Thanks very much, Alex. I'm going to move on. So David Plank, who posted the questions in the chat there. David, you've got your hand up. So if you could just unmute David, please. There you go, David. You should be able to ask a question now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It rises from Jane's answer to when the next of the local liaison forum is anticipated. When Jane and colleagues and I last met, there was a meeting of the local liaison forum anticipated. Now, if there is to be reliance solely on meetings with parish councils, that in effect excludes Trumpington because we don't have a parish council. And we would ask for a meeting with the Residents Association or in some other way. But it would be preferable to have a meeting of the forum as well. So the question is, will there be a meeting of the forum? And if not, will excluded bodies, and I note Sam's comment about Queen Edith's also being excluded, will excluded areas have designated meetings as well as the parish councils?
Okay, I'll ask the team. I'm not sure if they'll be able to commit to that now, but I'll certainly, if not, take away. But I'll give them the opportunity to. Jane, probably that you may be best placed to answer that. But if not, I'll ask you to take it away and come back.
Yes, I think we'll take that one away.
Okay.
And then we'll get back. Yes, we'll definitely want to engage with as many people as possible. So we will take it away and get back, David.
Thank you. Thank you. So comms team, please also note David's request there and that we're taking this as an action to respond to him on those requests for that additional engagement, or that was not additional, but that engagement that David's asking for. And also noting Councillor Davis's point about Queen Edith's, which has come in the chat. Okay. Oh, sorry. There's one final point here from Tony, which I'll come to. It seems a bit of a statement, but I'll just finish on this one and then we'll move on to the Greenways presentation. Tony's saying he was told over a year ago that GCP had closed the Cset local area forum. So I think actually that's, yeah, so it is about the local area forum. I think let's wrap that up with the question that we're taking away on the previous one from Tony, because I think they're all related in terms of opportunities for engagements sort of in the various geographical areas. Okay, so on that, I'm going to move on. As I say, any further questions on this topic, please send them to the general email address. And we're going to move on now to the final presentation, which is on the Greenways, and Chris is giving this. So I'll hand over to you, Chris, to share your screen, please.
Thank you, John. Yes, I'll see if I pass the first test of sharing my screen.
You've got the same issue here, Chris.
That there you go.
That's all good.
Is that better?
That's perfect.
Okay.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, so yeah, no, thank you, John. And yeah, so I'll be giving you an update on two of our Greenway schemes that kind of affect the south area of Cambridge. So those two routes are focused on kind of linking Cambridge with Melbourne and Cambridge with Sawston. I'll also be giving you a bit of an update on kind of when we're likely to be undertaking public engagement on those designs, so that obviously we get kind of your local stakeholder input into those. So that's roughly what I'm going to talk about today. Yeah, so my name's Chris Hart. I'm one of the GCP project managers looking after a whole bunch of the Greenway schemes, so those sort of in the north and the south. So this sort of falls under my remit. But yeah, just to I suppose take a little bit of a step back, because you might not all know about the Greenways, but yeah, just to provide a bit of broader context. So the Greenways will be effectively a network of 12 active travel routes that connect Cambridge to a number of settlements and villages around Cambridge, and obviously locations like Royston, Melbourne and Sawston being some of those routes. The purpose of the routes is to provide safe and well-connected active travel links, or principally for walking and cycling. And where possible, we're going to include equestrian provision where there's sort of evidence of demand. So these routes have been funded through City Deal, and the main purpose of that is to sort of address, I suppose, effectively some of the key challenges of our time, really try to reduce the impact of congestion and the knock-on impacts that has by basically giving people that a step change improvement in walking and cycling provision, which is that kind of alternative to the car. I suppose the other aspect really of the City Deal was making sure that we kind of support the sustainable growth of the area. So as soon as people move into a new development, they can kind of choose active travel as their kind of first port of call, really. So some of you might have been involved in some of the public consultation that was undertaken back in 2019 for the Sawston and the Melbourne routes. And subsequent to that, we had exec board approval to proceed with these Greenway schemes at the back end of, I think, back end of 2020. We've got a tall order on our hands. There's something like 150 kilometres of routes that are kind of shown on that plan there. Yeah, we've appointed two big design consultants to kind of support us with the development of these schemes through the design. So we've got teams from WSP and Atkins. So in terms of the focus for Sawston and Melbourne, we've got Atkins as the sort of Atkins overseeing the designs of those, and I'm sort of coordinating their inputs there. So that's a little bit of an overview of the Greenways. Yeah, just homing in on some of the program-wide activities that we've got sort of underway at the moment. So the first sort of point on the list is the kind of wayfinding strategy. So we're developing a strategy which ultimately, once all the routes are open, we'll have routes. Once they're open to the public, there will be a consistent set of directional signage and markers, all using the same branding along each of the greenways to basically help navigate users along those routes. So and there's an illustration of that, an example of that on the screen. So yep, we're doing a major piece of work looking at land referencing. So not all of the proposed routes we've got are entirely within the highway boundary. So we want to know sort of fully kind of what the land ownership arrangements are, so that we can effectively engage with landowners and key stakeholders, and obviously developing sort of appropriate planning strategies to when it gets to submitting planning applications if we need to do that. We are also taking the sort of program outline business case to the exec board in October, and that really just sort of I suppose just firms up the kind of the strategic case and objectives for the Greenways program as a whole. And I suppose given the potential scale of construction that would be required to sort of deliver all of these schemes, we're having early discussions with our contractor just to sort of understand kind of those key issues and constraints that we might have, and to sort of help inform a construction program once we get to that point. So in terms of the design stages for the Greenways, we're fairly early stages of most of the routes. So however, for most of them, we have completed sort of the kind of the first step of the design process, if you like, which is the kind of the concept stage design, and then sort of thereafter becomes your preliminary design and your detailed design thereafter that. So yeah, we're fairly early stage of that. And for the Melbourne and Sawston routes, we've just concluded the concept design stage there. So in terms of the specifics on the Melbourne and Sawston route, so we have tasked our design teams to sort of look at the route alignments, which were kind of agreed by exec board, to really provide us with a high level understanding of the technical challenges and opportunities we've got on those routes, so that we can progress to the next stage of design. So, you know, fully aware of what main issues are. So there's a whole bunch of kind of technical work that's being undertaken, starting recently on both of these routes. So, you know, we've got technical teams visiting the sites and cycling the routes, just to see to understand kind of existing conditions. We've commissioned topographic surveys so that we can help inform the design and understand all the levels. There's utility searches, which are kind of part and parcel of that, just to fully understand what's beneath. We think probably that's more of an issue where we're sort of in the more kind of urban areas. We've got proposals for some structures along the routes. So we're looking at kind of structures assessments, or looking at alternatives for structures if we need to. And as I said, sort of in the previous slide, we're sort of working up a planning strategy for each individual route to work out exactly what the planning requirements will be, because as you appreciate, we've probably got a complex set of land ownerships along the routes. So yeah, in terms of the other sort of technical tasks, there's a whole bunch of environmental assessments which we need to do, so that we'll pull all of that technical information together, and then effectively we get sort of the next stage of design, which will be the sort of the highways and drainage design. And kind of part of that will consider lighting as well. And I think lighting was mentioned in one of the previous presentations, and I think we need to kind of strike the right balance between making sure we've got routes that are kind of safe and accessible for all, balanced with kind of any environmental sensitivities, because there might be certain locations where we're in kind of more rural settings and lighting may not be appropriate. So, and I think given that there's been a period of time between sort of the public consultation on these routes and the and kind of where we are with the design at the moment, we're going to be identifying kind of the quick wins, really, so that we can make sure that the users can benefit from the routes as soon as possible. So most likely there will be sections within the highway boundary which will be slightly less challenging for us to deliver. So yeah, probably there's going to be a whole load of activity over the next few months, and we anticipate that we'll get through all of these tasks you can see on screen by the end of the year, when we kind of report back to the exec board. So there's obviously a lot of kind of variables in there that will kind of help shape that design. And probably last but not least on the list is we need to engage yourselves, the local community and local stakeholders, to sort of help kind of finalize and firm up those plans. So in terms of when we anticipate the sort of wider public engagement, so we're going to be undertaking those for Sawston and Melbourne later in the autumn, to share so we can kind of share those designs with you, and you can obviously comment on them and such like. There will be a combination of in-person events and virtual forums, and our comms team will obviously confirm those once venues are booked and we're kind of ready to do those. We'll be undertaking further stakeholder engagement sort of prior to that, so we'll be having meetings with parish councils, NMU users, because obviously they're going to be sort of the key users of these schemes, landowners, and also, where appropriate, where we interface with Network Rail and National Highways, we'll kind of have those discussions as well. And one part of the route kind of borders with Hertfordshire County Council, so we are obviously going to discuss that with Hertfordshire as well. So yes, and I think, probably just to wrap up, this is just an indication of the timetable for that public engagement. So you've got Sawston and Melbourne in the autumn, and then if you're interested in some of the other routes, this is when we're planning to undertake engagement on those routes. So last slide. So so during the rest of 2022, we'll kind of sort of progress with the designs and undertake the public engagement. And as I said, we're submitting a program outline, business case and program delivery timetable to exec board in October. And then I think we're going to be identifying any kind of potential quick wins which we could deliver in 2023. And at the moment, we're programmed to complete all of the Greenways around 2025.
Great. Thank you, Chris. Thank you for that. Now, I'm just going to use Chairman's prerogative to correct an oversight of mine. So if you just won't mind holding for a second, Chris, I'm just going to jump back to CSET 2 because sorry, Jenny Flynn from Stapleford Parish Council posted a question in the chat, which I skipped over as they were coming in. So I'm just going to quickly revert back to that. I'm also just going to draw attention to the comment in the chat that my colleague Jane, Jane from GCP, sorry, has put into the regarding engagement in there. If people want to read that regarding that last topic on CSET, and Jane and Alex, if you're there, I'm just going to read out Jenny's question, and we'll move on to questions for Chris, and there are a few stacking up, Chris, on the Greenways. So Jenny's question on CSET 2 was, the pre-access planning consent route didn't meet village residents' needs because it was too far from the centre of the village. The new route is even less likely to be used. Why not use this as an opportunity to reconsider the viability of an A1307 route instead? This would be cheaper, faster, and have a better BCR. So that's from Jenny. So Alex, see you've come off camera. Are you able to sort of answer that one, and then we'll move on to Greenways questions?
I think there's, I've put in a response there, John. I don't know if you've seen that. And that's in the responses to Jenny's question. There
you have. Sorry, it's in the chat. It is. Sorry, it was. So there you go, Jenny. It's from Jane at 7:26. You've got your answer to that question in the chat. So thank you very much for that, Jane. So apologies. So back onto the Greenways, and Chris, I'm gonna. There are no hands up, but there are some questions that have come up. So here we go. The first one is from Councillor Davis. Can you, Chris, explain what these structures are? That was from one of your earlier slides.
Yeah, certainly. So so one of the proposals is to create a structure at the end of the Melbourne route, which connects across into Royston. So at the moment, in terms of like budgets, we've got budgets to sort of explore the feasibility of the design of that, and potentially looking at an option to provide a level crossing in that area. But the material that was consulted on suggested a structure, so we're kind of going to be looking in that in more detail in the sort of this stage of the design. So yeah, there was a bridge structure which was proposed in the consultation, but sort of after that, we've the budget for that has not been identified yet. However, we have got budget to kind of explore options and yeah, kind of effectively optioneer those at that end of the route.
Okay, thank you, Chris. The next question is from David Plank. Will the Melbourne Greenway be extended from Trumpington Park and Ride to Trumpington Street as originally proposed?
No, that's a good question. I think at the moment that's not part of the core scheme, but could be something we can take away, I think. When you say originally proposed, I assume that means there was maybe in the consultation there was some proposal for that, but I think at the moment it's not part of the scheme that was approved by exec board. So we'll take that one away, I think, as a potential opportunity to consider.
Okay, yeah, please do. Right, and then just looking down the questions, she said, David, you got another one in there, but I'm just going to come to Linda and Rupert first, and then Jim. So Linda Roth is asking, do you have a time frame for the long overdue outstanding issues on the Sawston Greenway to be addressed? Will your public engagement include an examination of quick wins already delivered in terms of things that have worked or not worked? Chris?
Yeah, I think I've outlined the programme for effectively the preliminary design stage. So we're going to be running for both Sawston and I think the issue relates more to Sawston in terms of that existing issue. So we are looking at that as part of this stage of this stage of the design, and whether we can effectively improve the crossing there to make it an equestrian. One of the crossings potentially could be upgraded to an equestrian provision. Yeah, so in terms of engagement, yes, we'll be looking to do that in the autumn time to engage on those schemes. But yeah, kind of issues that have affected some of the so-called quick wins, we're looking at in this stage of design.
Okay, thank you. And sorry, David, the statement that you made, I'm going to ask the comms team to package that up with the previous ones they've taken away about geographical engagement as a suggestion. And that's one that you, David Plank, posted at 7:28. So Linda, we've done yours. So next, Rupert's. The Melbourne Greenway is meant to go through Harston. There is a conflict. There are conflicts on the road verges already. This may cause conflicts if it doesn't go on a better route through the village. Your planning timetable is tight. Given the concept stage has been completed, please can the planning team have a meeting with the parish and landowners about what practical and better local requirements sooner as part of the wider active travel plan. So it's a question. So there are some statements in there about concerns, Chris, and it's a request.
Yeah, I think the best thing to do, we'll set up a meeting, Rupert, and I can get our design team to sort of talk through what our current proposals are, and then we can take it from there.
Great, thank you. Next question coming in the chat. No, sorry. Yes, it was proposed. Right, so sorry, yeah, it's another one. So David, you've put another statement in there, and Sam Davis. So yeah, sorry, please note David Plank's thing about what would welcome considerations given there. Note comms team, Councillor Davis. I don't feel that I have a clear understanding of how the GCP Greenways team is engaging with local members at the moment. We only brought up to speed as part of the public engagement in the autumn. I had no opportunities to contribute and share this plan. So it's another comment that I'm going again about the engagement. I'm not going to, unless there's anything particular you want to sort of say about that, Chris, but there's a number of comments and feedback coming in about the engagement process.
Yeah.
So
That's I think that's key, that we kind of engage over the next sort of 2 to 3 months with the key stakeholders in the run up to that public engagement. So
yeah,
so yeah, we're on it, and we'll set up meetings with you shortly. So we've got a comms team who are doing some stakeholder, they've done the stakeholder mapping, and we just need to make sure we kind of set up those meetings.
Right, okay. So yeah, there's quite a few comments in here for the
John, can I just add to Councillor Davis, because I'm conscious that obviously engagement with members is incredibly important. So we are engaging with members, and it is, we are looking to program that, and it will be obviously before the actual engagement sessions with the public that we have those meetings with councillors. So in terms of being able to kind of contribute and comment on those, there will be opportunity to do so. So yeah, I mean, please appreciate that I'm sure you do appreciate it, but with kind of 150 kilometres of route, it's a significant process, and we are kind of starting at the moment with the Comberton and Haslingfield, where we are starting to set up those meetings with kind of local councillors there. So yeah, just to highlight.
Thank you. Thank you for that reassurance. And again, Linda, you've made a plea there about offering engagement that includes all stakeholders. So again, we'll take that away. Right, looking at the time, it's 7:35. Any final questions on the Greenways? Please do post it in the chats in the next minute or so, or please stick your hand up as well if you want to ask anything. Otherwise, we'll sort of move to the wrap up. Okay, no, not seeing any hands. So thank you, Chris, for your presentation and for your answering the questions, supported there by Thomas. So all it sort of remains for me to say then at the end of those 5 presentations, and thank you for the positive comments that are coming in about the session in the chat. It's always good to have that feedback. Is that thank you very much to elected members, parish councillors and all community members, resident associations and everybody that has attended tonight. Thank you for your thought-provoking questions, feedback, statements and everything else. Please rest assured that it has all been captured. We've got a very astute comms team here that's capturing everything that's sort of said, and also the questions that have been answered. I'd also very much like to thank the presenters tonight. You for all 6 of you for presenting, and the sort of supporting cast from GCP behind the screens, the technical support that's helped made this work. Thank you very much. So I hope that was a useful update on those 5 projects for on you community members. Just seen that final comment come in from James there. So yeah, we've captured that as well. Again, it's about engagement, so thank you for that. So on that note, I'll bid you all a good night. Thanks again, and hopefully I'll see you sometime in the future. Okay, goodbye.
Chris, just to note, you're still sharing screen if you want to stop doing that. Thank you.